right? So now I have to say, I have to define my user routes. Okay, so first of all, I would just define my user routes, and I would just say whenever someone calls app.use, whenever someone calls route which is starting from user APIs. Okay, so I would send that guy to which page? User routes page. Okay, so user routes, inside this, whenever I call this API route, I would be sending the user to this file. Okay, that means now inside this, whatever you write, that's dependent. That means we are going to write some operation, create, read, update, delete user. So we are going to do that now. Don't worry. So let's do this. So first of all, guys, here I'm just going to create a database of users. Okay, temporary database. Later on, you would be using MongoDB, but right now I'm just assuming that we have a temporary database which is in JSON format, obviously. Okay, so JSON format database, and MongoDB also you would be storing data in JSON format, so you don't need to worry. And right now I'm just going to create an array, and inside this I would be having some objects like this. Okay, some objects like this. So again, you can create a set of users which would be looking something like this. Okay, so you can see that I have added some JSON format data which looks like this. Okay, so very basic data, and we have assumed that this is my database which has some set of users. So here we are going to perform some operations. So this is a file. So obviously for manipulation we would be using fs module. So let's come back here, and the problem here was you have to fix the user route. So let's come inside the user routes. Now guys, here again, first of all, you need to define express. So const express equals require express. Then I would just define an instance. I would just say router. So this instance is a bit different. So we have to define it like this, express dot router. Okay, then I want to use fs module. So I would simply type fs, and by default it's available. You don't need to install it externally. Okay, so it's available. Then we also want to use the path module to find the path. Okay, to define the path of the file. Okay, to manipulate the path, to manipulate the file, we actually use the fs module. To find the file, we actually use the path module, right? So both are important here. So guys, you know that this file is where? This file is outside. Okay, that means it might be in some branch things, but right now this file is outside. So what do you mean is you want to first of all say in your directory, look for what? Look for user database. Okay, so look for user database JSON. Okay, look for user database JSON. How we would look? First of all, we have to print directory name. According to that, we would find user database JSON. Okay, just don't worry. But first, let's fix this. Okay, so for fixing this, we would simply just say module.exports router. That's it. Okay, that's it. So now you can see that the error would be actually gone. I think there is some issue again. So quick fix, and okay, I think I would just need to write this again. So user, yeah, actually, yeah, the name was incorrect. Yeah, now you can see that everything is fine. You have just made an export, so this file is also fine. Okay, so first of all, let me just print console.log underscore dir name, and actually I would just say I would just create an API here so that we can access this file. So router dot get, and I would just write test here. Okay, and now when someone tries to call the API of what path? Of path named as slash user APIs, after that slash test. So if slash user API slash test is called, then this API would be called, right? So now if I just write, so you would get the response. So user test route. Okay, and I would actually create a similar API here, so you would see the difference. Okay, you would see the difference. Index page. Okay, so if I just call test, it would give me index page test route. But if I call slash user APIs slash test, so it would give me user test route. So now let's try to test this, how it actually work. And I'm getting some error here. Okay, what's the error? Oh, actually it's not router here, it's app. Okay, so app.get. That's it. So now to test this, what we would do is we would simply go to our page, and here if I type test, what would happen? So you would get index page test route. But if I type user APIs slash test, what would happen? You would get user test route. Okay, so that's the difference. So if you write user APIs, you would go inside user routes.js file. Inside that, it would look for test API, right? So that's how it actually works. That's how routing works in this case. Now, I hope you got a very basic overview how routing works. Now, some advanced level stuff would be done here. Right, so this was very important. Please repeat the video if you can. If you didn't understood, you can repeat the video and rewrite the code on your own. Now, let's continue. And here, what you have to do is you have sent the user to this page. So inside this page, you have defined only one API. Also, one more thing, I have to look for dir name. So whenever someone hits this API, I have to look for dir name. Okay, so let's see how it actually looks. So let me just reload. So here you would see that this is actually my this is my dir name. Okay, so where am I? I'm inside the routes folder and I have to look for user database. That means I have to jump one folder outside routes. That means my backend one. And in my backend one, I have to look for user database.json. So my path would be actually like plus dot slash, and here I have to look for user database JSON. Okay, so user database. Okay, so database dot json. Okay, so I have to look it something like this. Okay, so suppose if, for example, if I write it, okay, so if I write it like this, now let's see what actually happens. So now if I just reload, okay, so here you would actually see the route like this. Okay, so now I'm simply saying outside routes, actually I have to use the path module properly. So instead of this I have to write path module, then it would give me proper response. Okay, so I would just say what is my file path. So here only I'm going to define the variable outside. So I want to define the file path, so I'll just create a variable named as data file path, but you can give any name. I'm just going to join two different paths. One is dir name and second is what, my directory or file name. Okay, so first of all I am just finding the dir name, okay, which would give me the complete path where I am in. Okay, it would give me the path of the routes folder. Now from the routes folder I have to jump one folder outside and look for user database JSON. Okay, so that's the exact path which I want to look for. Okay, so now I want to simply print what, data file path. Okay, so now guys, if I just reload, you would get the exact path. Okay, so if I just click on this, it would take me to this file. Control and click. So if you click on this, it would take you to this file. That means the path is exactly correct. If I press control and click on this, it would take me to this file. That means everything is fine, right? That means we have tracked the file correctly, right? So now since we have tracked the file correctly, so we can make modifications using the fs module. Path module is to just, in this case, it's just used to modify the path to find the exact file's path. Then we would be using the fs module to make modification inside the file. Okay, so how we can do that? So first of all, let's create a function which would allow me to read data from file. Okay, so for that what we can do is we can simply say we have a function, and let me just name it as read data from file. Okay, from file. So we want to read the data. So here I would just say const data equals read, so actually fs dot read file, and I'm doing this synchronously, but you can also make it asynchronous, doesn't matter in this case. So you can say I'm making it synchronous. That means if the task is going on, let the task complete, then other task would be completed. That is known as synchronous. Asynchronous simply means if some process is taking a lot time, let other smaller process finish first, then the bigger process would be finished along with them. Okay, so that's known as asynchronous. That's what save time, but we are right now doing synchronous task. Okay, so here I'm just going to say read data. That's how you can do this. You can watch my previous video on fs module, and once you got this, you would just send that data, whatever data you have. Okay, so you would just get the data, and here parse simply means that is you would be reading data from here. This data would be readed as a string. This data would be readed as a string. So I'm just converting that string data into JSON format data. That's it. Okay, so now I have just read the data. Now similarly we want to write data. Okay, so again I'm just going to copy this and I'll just name it as write. Write simply means it would erase everything from here, it would erase everything from here and add the new data. Okay, so add the new data, erase everything from here and add the new data, that is known as write. Okay, so for that what you would do is, again, you would just say whatever data you would provide to this, whatever data you would provide to this, you just want to write that. Okay, so I would just say fs dot write data, and I'm just saying in that path I want to pass that data, the data. Okay, that means everything would be erased from here. Once you write things, everything would be erased from here and some new data would be added. Okay, that's known as write operation, right? So that's what I've did. Whatever new data has been provided to this, I would just add it to this specific file, erase old data and add it to the specific file. That's it. Okay, so now we have also performed the write operation. Now let's try to use this. How we can do this? We can simply say, guys, instead of this, we need to perform append data also. Okay, so similar to this, we can write append data. So actually, we won't be using write data mostly. We would be using append data. So that what would happen? Just add new data to the old data. That means if there were six objects here, seventh object would be added at the last. That means old data won't be removed, so this would make things more easier, right? Else what you have to do is, if you are performing write operation and if you want to add new user using the write operation, what you would do? You would first of all copy all six objects, then you would erase all six objects, then you would make those six objects joined with the seven object, then you would pass it here. So that's very complicated. So right now I'm just going to use the append operation, that's easier. Okay, so I'm just saying, if you want to read the whole data, it would allow you to read the whole data. If you want to append the data, that means add some new object, you would be using the append data operation, and here inside this append file. Okay, that's it. So I'm just saying that append file synchronously. That's it.